Hey everybody, welcome to this AnyDAW Pop EDM tutorial. I'm John Merritt from Born to Produce, and you're going to learn to make this track from nothing right through to the final mixdown and master.
I'm like a cannonball.
So you can follow along in any DAW as long as you know your way around it, so you need to be like an advanced beginner or above. We only use free instruments, so it's accessible to everybody. Let's jump right in and get making the beat. So open a new project in whichever DAW you're using. Now just a quick note, I have my project set up to be 96K and 24-bit. You can use a lower sample rate if you want to, but just bear in mind that all of the audio that comes with the tutorial is provided at 96K and 24-bit, so if you do use a lower sample rate, you'll need to convert it as you bring it into your project. So in this lesson, we're going to make a basic beat to start off with to act as the foundation for our track, but we'll add more drums in later lessons. So we're going to make a layered kick to start off with. I'll get into why that is important in a second, but let's just bring in our first kick. So just navigate to wherever the work files are on your computer, which if you bought the course will be in the downloaded zip. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, then you can download and unpack the free work files that are linked in the description below. Then navigate to wherever you unpack them on your computer. I've just put mine on the desktop. I'm going to go into the Pop EDM tutorial work files, audio, and I'm going to start with kick 44. And I'm going to right click and create a sampler track, which just basically creates a channel with a sampler on it and the kick inside that. Now, most DAWs will have a sampler built into them. If for some reason your DAW does not have a sampler of some description, then you can use the free one called the TX16WX-VST. So just type that into your search engine and it's just the first link there and you can download from that page. Now, before I do anything else, I'm just going to turn the kick down. This is kind of like preemptive gain staging, so when I add anything else to the project, I'll use the kick as the sort of volume level to balance everything else too. Now, you can do this a lazy way like I have, just by turning down the volume. If you want, you can actually do this using the channel pre-gain. In Cubase, that's found in the channel settings, but pretty much every DAW has a pre-gain, so you can just turn it down there if you want. If you do use the pre-gain instead of just turning it down on the fader, you will still retain the full range of movement on the channel fader. Now, I've actually never found it to be an issue, so I just use the fader, but it's totally up to you how you do it. All right, so before we actually draw in the MIDI, let's just change the BPM of our project. So I'm going to set this to 130, so it's more in line with the sort of pop EDM style. And I'm just going to draw in a blank MIDI segment. Starting from bar 5, it's advisable that you do the same thing, just so we're all sort of on the same page here. This blue bar at the top is just the loop region. So if I play within this region, it's just going to loop those 4 bars, but that's not important for now. We just want to draw in that first MIDI segment. I'm going to double click to go into it. Just going to zoom in a bit, and I'll change my snap to 1/8, and I'm going to draw in a kick on every beat, just half a beat long, so we'll have this. Nice and simple. So there is our 4x4 kick pattern, but as mentioned, what I want to do is layer this kick with a second kick. So what we're going to end up with is one kick that is providing the sort of low-end boom and tail of the kick, and the other layer providing the kind of mid-range top-end punch. Why this is important is that it will give us more control over the kick. So if we want to add more punch to the kick or more bass, we can simply turn up the respective layer. So I'm just going to add the other kick, which is kick 46. So again, I'm just going to load that as a sampler. I'm just going to copy the kick MIDI down because it's just a nice, easy way of doing it. And also I'm just going to turn that one down as well. By the way, these kicks and many of the samples we use in this tutorial are taken from our own Club Tools 1 sample pack. So check that out if you want. And now we just got to layer the kicks together. So there is more than one way to layer 2 kicks together. We'll be using the envelope and the start to finish points in the sampler track to shape the dynamics, and also the EQ to adjust the frequencies. So our first kick, kick 44, has this nice kind of punch to it. So the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to actually remove the very lowest of frequency, so I'm just using the standard channel EQ, but obviously load up whatever EQ you want to use. I'm going to change the steepness of the low cut filter to 48, activate it, and then I'm just going to remove literally anything just below the sort of like 50 hertz mark. So really just removing that sub, even that's just a tiny bit too much. I really want to take out just the sub frequencies, so that's perfect. We still want to keep most of that mid-range or low mid-range punch in there, so that's fine for that kick. Now we just got to shape it as well, so I'm going to just shorten this using the sampler controls. So let's just zoom out a bit in the sampler, and I'm just going to change the end point. So I'm just going to bring that right in. So somewhere around there, and I'm also going to add a volume fade to the end. I'm just going to zoom in to the start of this as well, because it looks like the kick starts slightly late, so I'm just going to adjust that as well, so it's a bit more precise. Sorry, let's just say that again quickly. So as you can hear, we're just literally getting the very start punchy part of the kick. Okay, that's cool. Let's move on to the second kick. So this is the kick that we're going to use for the sort of sub bass and tail. So what we're going to do here, again, I'm just going to zoom in a bit. Looks like the kick doesn't quite start perfectly at the beginning, so I'm just adjusting that. And I'm also just going to add a volume fade to reduce the amount of punch. So you can hear there. Just reducing the amount of punch, because obviously we've got the first kick providing that punch. And I will just shorten this off a little bit. It's just a little bit on the long side. So let's just change the end point somewhere around there. Let's just try this. Get a nice gentle fade at the end there. Okay, so that's pretty much all I want to do. Let's just play them together. So that's what we get, a nice EDM sort of sounding kick. And again, like I said, the beauty of this is that I now have complete control. So if I want more or less punch, I can just select the first kick layer and just turn that down. Or if I want more, obviously turn it up, etc. Now, I went through that fairly quickly, but just remember the most important thing when layering kicks is that the sub bass of each layer doesn't conflict with the other layer. So either we EQ out the sub bass from one, like we've done on the more punchy layer, and use whatever controls you've got, whether it's just in audio or whether it's in a sampler, to sort of shape the kick. So you're really making sure that the tails or the sub bass part of the kick does not overlap. Otherwise, what will happen is the sub bass from either kick will basically interfere with the sub bass of the other kick, and you're going to get a sort of weird mess. So very important to make sure that your layers are nice and tidy on a sub bass level particularly. All right, so very quickly, I'm just going to relabel these. So kick top and then kick bottom. Now let's quickly add a clap and a hat. So again, in the work files, if you find clap 31, I'll just load that onto a sampler track, draw in my blank bit of MIDI, go into it, and the clap, as always, you probably know this by now, falls on the second and fourth beat. So that's fine, let's just turn it down a bit. Okay, sounding all right so far. Now let's just add the hat. So again, let's go and find it in our work files. So open hat 14. Let's just again create a sampler track. Actually, let's just quickly turn it down first. Go into it. And of course, in EDM, most styles of sort of like housey based music, the hat always falls on the offbeat. So make sure you got your grid set to 1/8. And then we can draw in that on the offbeat. Okay, so there we go. We've got a nice basic EDM beat. Of course, we're going to be adding more drums to this later on to help give it a more sort of EDM or traditional EDM feel, but we will get to that later. Now, one last thing that I want to discuss here is in the rest of the tutorial, we are going to be using a free synthesizer called Vital, which you can get to just by searching for Vital Synth, and it will be the first link, so click on that. This is the site, so if you just scroll down, you'll find you can download different versions. Now, the free version is the complete version, so you don't lack anything at all. The only thing you get by paying or subscribing is a load of extra presets. So you can pay if you want to support Matt Teitel, who is the developer, and totally worth it in my opinion, but obviously up to you. This really is an absolutely amazing synthesizer. No joke, it's properly up there with like Serum and other synths, which cost well over 100 quid, sometimes much more. So just click to download the basic version or whatever and install it for your particular DAW. Now, if this is your first time using Vital, you may want to watch our free tutorial on it. So if you just type in Vital Synth Tutorial, and ours is the first organic link here, borntoproduce.com. And this will show you how to just sort of use the basics of Vital to get your head around it enough that you'll be able to then follow along with all of the sound design tutorials that are made within this tutorial. Okay, that's it for the first lesson. In the next lesson, we'll be making the chord progression. Thanks very much for watching, guys and girls. See you in the next one.